Welcome back to Shit Creek Survivors, where we share stories of resilience, tools that build resilience, and most importantly, the hope that reminds us that we're never alone in the journey. Today, Dennis and I sit down with Michael Esposito, who's an executive coach, keynote speaker, and the host of the Michael Esposito Show. Michael helps leaders and founders communicate with impact while staying authentic. In this conversation, we explore how vulnerability, authenticity, and showing up as your true self in every area of life can build resilience, leadership, and personal growth. Let's dive in.
Sir, I was shot in the face 10 years ago, which resulted in PTSD, which resulted in near-death experience. And I found myself in a shit creek, and I didn't know how to get out. I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't have the right tools, and I was lost, like absolutely lost. And but over time and therapy and medication and all this kinds of stuff, I was able to kind of get myself moving. Dennis was my partner in the police department in special operations. He also served in the Army, where his convoy was attacked, and unfortunately, some individuals that he knew really well passed away, and that affected him moving forward. And then again, he came back, and he was Ferguson happened. We were in St. Louis, Missouri. That's where I got shot, and so that happened. And Dennis has explained multiple times that kind of reactivated the trauma. You know, you're at home. You're at home.
Home's
You're
supposed to be
feel
safe, and all of a sudden everybody's against you again, publicly, and being spat at and all that kind of stuff. It's like, man, mentally I was like back in the war zone again in a way, and it just trauma coupled with trauma, as Cam has also said. But the whole point of the podcast is we keep each other accountable. We share some stuff, and hopefully somebody reaches somebody and they hear some resilient stories and some resilient tools, and it helps them through their day too. And it has, because we've gotten feedback from people that watch. So, helping at least each other and helping one person is all counts, all that matters.
We got the idea from a couple things. One was, when you're rolling around in a police car, for 12 hours straight, you end up talking about things that you wouldn't normally talk about, right? And you start building trust and all that kind of stuff. So we thought that was a helpful tool while we were out there on the road. And then when I was getting back on my feet, I needed to get sober. I had been using alcohol to kind of like sedate me, chill me out, self-medicate. And I needed to get sober, and that was really, really hard. And I had to learn a lot and kind of break my ego along the way. But I was amazed when I first went to an AA meeting, hat all the way down. If I could have sunglasses on, I would. I was sitting in the back. And then I'm hearing people say stories about things they've done that I would never say, ever. My ego would not allow it. But then I started hearing stories, and I was like, I can relate to that. Or actually, that's a good point. And I started catching all these gold nuggets, and I was like, why don't we normally talk about this? This could literally be a class in high school, like self-accountability, controllables, uncontrollables, apologizing for the things that you've done, figuring out how to serve something bigger than yourself and all that kind of stuff. And it was a long process for me. You have to find a higher power in AA. And I could not contact God. I didn't believe he was there based on everything I had been through. And I had childhood trauma that was now re-stimulated because I was going through PTSD for something else, and trauma couples with trauma. And, it was just crazy that, we go through these things, and for whatever reason, we don't think it's fair. And I was a victim for a very long time, but nothing changed until I was willing to do the work, actually decide that I was going to do it for me. Because unfortunately, especially in those moments, I was pretty selfish, and I didn't want to get sober. I didn't want to live even for anyone else. But I got to the realization that I literally survived being shot in the face, and I'm about to kill myself with alcohol. And it really kind of, I don't know, it grabbed me. It made me go to work. It made me go to more meetings. It made me kind of want to get better. And we do have alcoholism in our family. So I really didn't want to be like put in that category, of
You're
like
Scottish.
Yeah, I am Scottish. full blood, I
That's
was
not
born.
alcoholism. That's tasting.
Yeah. Exactly. And so that's where we kind of came up with the idea. Shit Creek Survivors, stories of resilience and tools for resilience, right? And that way, we hope that by scattering these seeds, anyone they land on has the potential of it becoming something very positive in their lives. You know, at least knowing that someone else is out there struggling and trying to get better. And it turns out that's life. You know, we constantly think, you know, everyone else has it right. And we're looking on the other side of the fence, which appears to be greener, but it's not. We're almost focus so much on what's going wrong that we can't see what's going well. And so that's where we came from.
I like
So
your shirt, by the way. Be the good. It's good. Good message.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, the last time somebody said they liked my shirt, they gave me that sign. I was wearing a shirt that said "Mindset is everything," and she was like, "Oh my goodness, wait right here!" And she came back and she had this sign. She was giving it to her salespeople.
That's
So,
amazing. Yeah.
I don't know if you have a sign that says "Be the good."
Well,
Not yet.
I have a shirt that says "Be kind," and the B is BEE, like the bee, because
Yep.
but it had a backstory as well to it. But with my wife's brother-in-law.
I have that too. To be kind. Thank you for sharing all of that. By the way, that's a lot that you shared there, and I'm sure you do it with all your guests, but you're sharing a lot. You know, when you're talking about leadership, you're making you got both of you very vulnerable and sharing a lot. So, and not everybody's able to do that.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, but
Appreciate it.
it's part of the steps. It's part of the process.
Absolutely. Well, I am today currently where I stand. I am a executive coach. Some people call me a life coach. I would just call myself a coach and speaker. So what I do is I work with professionals, whether they're executives in an organization or they're entrepreneurs, and I work with them on being able to untangle what's going on up there so that their true value can come out and they can live in their authentic selves.
Gotcha.
A lot of buzzwords in there, and I'll break those down for us. And then on stage, when I'm speaking, whether it be in a workshop with organizations and their teams or in conferences with a group of organizations, I speak on leadership and on culture and talking about how in leadership, some of the most important things are communication and
Oh, yeah.
support.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, I have my 4 pillars, but those 2 right there, communication and support, are the biggest. And when we go into workshops, we really play that out with our teams and our managers and our employees. We play out, what does communication look like? What does collaboration look like? And
Okay.
truly, what is support, right? So we have our goals and we have our numbers and we have our quotas, but how do we truly support our team members? And by the way, how do our team members support our managers in accomplishing all of that together so that it doesn't feel like top down, it feels completely as a whole. So that's what I speak on. And to just kind of go back to those buzzwords and living our authentic lives and all the other stuff I said previously, it's really just being ourselves and just speaking, working with leaders like you guys, working with leaders out in the community and just saying, hey, you have value just the way you are.
I love
As
it.
you are today, you offer value to others, and you don't need to change in the way of like a 180 change. You just need incremental steps on scaling, on leveling up, on getting better, on improving. But you need to appreciate and be happy with who you are today. That's the first step. And as you mentioned in just sharing both of your stories, that's part of many of the programs in terms of being able to release ourselves from addiction and come out of depression is accepting who we are. And
Yeah.
executives and entrepreneurs and community leaders all struggle with some of the same things of, I need to be better. I need to level up. I need to change who I am. I need to do all of these habits. I read this book and I got to do all these things. And the answer is yes, we all seek improvement and we all need to improve. But
Yeah.
first, we need to accept ourselves for who we are today. So
That's
the work I do.
really, really well said. Yeah. Do you find a lot of people are like waiting to become enough? You know, they're like, oh, I got to do 100 things and then I'll be enough, and
Yeah.
then I can accept myself. Wow. Yeah. I've definitely battled that type of thing.
Oh, sure. That's the rat race.
Yeah. That's the rat race.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have a friend who we were just talking about, and I don't want to share too much about this person, but they were comparing their numbers to somebody else's numbers. They were saying, I'm at X amount and this person's at X amount. And I said to them, that's great, right? It's great that you can acknowledge where you are and you can strive for that person. But when you start comparing yourself to that person and looking at yourself as exactly what you just said as not enough, you're not doing enough, now you're doing yourself a disservice. You need
Yeah.
to recognize where you are, how you got to where you are, set aspirational, tangible goals. They could be BHAGs and the big, hairy, audacious goals, but you need to set those goals, recognize what they are and recognize that they're goals, but you're not comparing where you are right now to those goals or to those people.
Right.
What do you say, Dennis? Comparison is the thief of all joy.
Yeah, comparison's a thief of joy. And then also, if you want to get out of a hole, you climb a ladder one rung at a time. You don't just jump out of the hole. So you were just saying incremental
that.
changes. That sounded just like a ladder.
Yeah.
Love that. Absolutely.
And I love your question, and it really caught me. What if you could be who you are everywhere you are? And
Yeah.
it sounds beautiful, but it is really hard. It
Yes.
is,
Pride messes you up on that one a lot. For me, it does.
and I think sometimes like even a basic feeling of safety. Sometimes like you just give up who you are and your authentic self to blend in, and what you're doing, I found out, is you're almost like sacrificing self to blend in. And then you usually don't receive what you think you're going to receive. And now you've basically, in some cases, given up moral standards to blend in with a group. And then you're just as guilty as everyone else. You know what I mean? There was no actual traction to it. You just wanted to be part of the group and be accepted because you're worried about who you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's also what leads to a lot of anxiety, a lot of stage fright. Imposter syndrome is the big word. So
Yeah.
many people come to me and they're talking about imposter syndrome, or I deal with a lot of public speaking, a lot of communication type of clients, and it's anxiety, getting on stage, and all this other stuff. And the reason for it, the base to it all, is that you are trying to be someone who you may not be. We're faking it till we make it kind of ideas, right?
Yep.
Nothing wrong with stretching ourselves and working towards becoming a more polished speaker and working towards that. Nothing wrong with that. And there's gonna be pressure there. Anything that's worth going for, there's gonna be a little bit of pressure, a little of anxiety, but that's performance anxiety. That's very different to imposter syndrome, which is the fear of being found out. And so when we're
Yeah.
faking, when we're making believe we're someone else, or we're showing up as someone else and we're not showing up as our true selves, now we're worried that, oh no, Cam's gonna find out who I really am. Oh no, Dennis knows. He knows who I really am. And so when I'm speaking right now, Dennis is going to call me out any second now. And so the nervous energy starts piling up. The anxiety starts piling up. And so that's why I say that. Like, what if you could just be who you are everywhere you are? And to the point that you just made, Cam, I was on a walk with another client. By the way, um, I've worked on this for myself too, in terms of my business, in that I knew I didn't want to be a suit and tie behind a desk coaching people.
Right.
I knew that I wanted to work with athletic people, people who enjoy the outdoors and like activity. And so when I set up my coaching calls, they're typically a walk. In fact, that's my next meeting is we're going to go for a beautiful walk out in
Oh,
the Hudson
cool.
Valley, New York here. That's where I
Love it.
am in New York. We're going to go for a nature walk and talk about what she's got going on. So this gentleman, we were on a walk, we were on a hike, actually. It was a really nice day out for a hike. And we were talking about it. And he had just been asked to resign from his position. And we were having the conversation about him getting a new position. And in the conversation, I asked him, well, what are your values? And he mentions his values to me. And I said, in the last position that you were asked to resign from, did you live in those values? And he said, actually, I didn't. And it's why I had to resign. Could you imagine that the reason why he had to resign was because he was placating to his higher ups and doing what they were asking him to do, all knowing that he wasn't living inside of his own values,
Right.
therefore not being his authentic self. And so in our conversation, I said, now you have this opportunity for a new position. Let's live into those values, right? Because it's better to not get the job and be in your values. It's better to get the job and live in your values and be terminated. Like, I rather that every single day of the week to do and to live as who I am. And you could tell me, Michael, I hate you. Michael, you're fired. I don't want you as our coach. I don't want you on the stage, but I'm living in my values versus I'm living as someone else. And then you're rejecting me. It's like, oh, wait, no, wait. It's like too late for that. The bus is gone, dude.
Yeah. Very well said. Very well said. Got to live your authentic self. Because I tell you what, after I got shot and I was laying on the ground because I thought I was dead, you really get kind of like an idea of like, did I do this right or was I living in another way? And we'll all have those moments maybe in the future, but yeah, it catches up with you, especially the longer you go living as someone that you're not. It just chips away at you over time, and like it can kind of bog you down.
What you said, Cameron, when you were laying there, if I remember right, you said you didn't help enough people. That was
Yeah,
one of your last thoughts. You didn't help enough people. That drives forward to this podcast, I believe, as well.
yeah, yeah.
That's incredible that in that moment where your life is fading, you don't know if you're going to make it. The statement that you made was, I didn't help enough people,
Mm.
which really speaks to the servant leadership that both of you have in being,
Yeah.
military and police officers and serving the public, that was the question. I'm curious when you came back, right? When
Mm.
you were revived and healed to some extent, obviously this podcast, what were some of the shifts that you made to be able to resolve that within?
Well, I right after I got shot, I mean, PTSD just it showed up, and it doesn't make sense because I thought it would be like 3 months out, 4 months out, 5 months out, and you got like bad stuff going on. I mean, it was all day flashbacks, all night dreams. So I was just drinking, drinking, drinking. I needed more, I needed more, I needed more. And the more I did that, and the pain didn't decrease, the more of a gap I made between myself and everyone else in the world. So I isolated myself, and I also like kind of pushed God away. And so I just got my world really, really small. And it's funny when you make your world really small, you also complain, why isn't anybody helping? So it's kind of like this like mind trick that's going on in your head. And it's
Dennis is like, I
real.
was calling you every day, man.
Yeah, exactly. But I just wasn't ready to drink. People were trying to get me to the water, and I just wasn't ready to drink, and I refused it. But what I had to do in order to come out of that, I knew I had to radically change myself. And I had to stop seeing, I had to actually push everyone else's opinions away. And these were opinions that I had made up for other people. So again, this is toxic on another level. I'm thinking for you, and you're thinking negatively about me, which definitely reflects how I was feeling about myself, right? Um, and so I had to at some point just pick myself. Like, I'm not doing this for anybody else. I have to do this for me. I know I can. If I'm laying there dying again, I don't want to feel like I didn't try, And so little by little, it started with getting sober, to tell you the truth, because that was the biggest thing. I had to get to my first AA meeting. And what was amazing is I did have the support of my family and all that kind of stuff, but I wasn't getting sober for them. I'll say that now, and it sounds crazy, but I almost had to be selfish. It had to be for me, because if it was for anybody else, I would have gotten mad at that person probably. I actually would have been like, why are you making me do it? And having this whole flow of thoughts. Anyways, I had to radically change because I wanted to I I just it's exhausting being hateful all day, every day. It
Yeah, but when you
really
finally
is.
got out of it, you started the PTSD website. You started
Yeah.
going to police academies and churches and telling your story and talking about it. And it was 10 years ago, 9 years ago when you started getting into the recovery stuff. And now we've been doing the podcast for a year. So
Yeah.
it's been incremental steps to get to this point.
Yeah.
And you had to choose yourself and you had to choose positivity. Positivity will breed positivity and negativity will breed negativity. So do yourself a favor and try to think positive and try to put positive spins on things. It's just the way it has to be. It's as simple as it is, but it's hard to do,
And
but it's
and
simple.
And yeah, so Dennis said it, like, which is exactly it, which is, when you were there lying there saying, I didn't help enough people, obviously you had to help yourself first, which we know we got to
Mhm.
put the mask on first. And like what Dennis just said, and then you went off and started helping a lot of people, which is
yeah.
so cool. So you were able to change and live out that idea of how can I help more people, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I noticed that there wasn't a lot of resources for people with PTSD.
Mm.
And
There's a
especially,
stigma in a lot of police officers and military. It's a stigma.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I decided
But
I would create
everybody
a,
goes through it. I mean, like, we can't compare. I mean, my sister has PTSD. She never went to the military. She wasn't a police officer. She has her own story. I'll let her share it one of these days. She said she might come on. But everybody has their struggles, their battles,
yep.
and everybody has to get through them the same way with positivity and controlling what you can control and helping yourself and choosing you.
Yeah. And there's a lot, and there's tools as well that are so important and so helpful. It's interesting, like, as I'm jumping on with you guys and we're talking, I have these different stories of my own traumas that I'm like, okay, which one will I bring up? And the one that's kind of percolating right now is more childhood stuff than it is things that happen in business or in life. And I think that would resonate with a lot of people. So I guess I might as well share it, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
Yeah,
that's what we're here
yeah.
for, right?
as I
We've discussed a lot of childhood stuff. I had a secret that I kept for 30 years, and then I get shot, and that secret kind of came up to the surface, and I ended up having to process through that and all that kind of stuff. But all those childhood things matter. They really do. Anyways, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No, absolutely.
we talk about it a lot.
Yeah, it's like you just said, they just kind of come out of nowhere sometimes, but they didn't come out of nowhere. What it is you're dealing with challenging situations throughout life and you don't understand why.
Right.
And in some ways it's very obvious, right? Shot in the face, it's like obvious. It's you got shot in the face, man. Like here's your PTSD moment, right?
Right.
Um and uh and then in other ways it's like I don't know what's going on. I have these issues and I don't know why. And
Right.
so you have to start kind of like peeling the onion, like really just trying to understand what they are. And for me, there's a lot to unpack there, which we're not going to do today. But there's trauma of abuse. There's trauma of abuse from family members, from teachers, from different people that I'll say abusive language. It wasn't sexual abuse in any of those. It was abusive language. It was abusive hands, like just physicality. I had a moment that I didn't realize was real, and this is like talk about trauma. So in fifth grade, something happened, and I put it in the back of my mind, and it disappeared.
Mhm.
And many years later, I'm out with some friends. We're in our 20s, and I run into one of my friends from grammar school. And he says to me, "Hey, wow, great seeing you." He goes, "I'll never forget the day that happened." And I went, "Wait a second, what happened?" And he said, "I'll never forget the day that the teacher took your head and slammed it into the blackboard." Immediately, it came rushing back as like, whoa, that was real? And immediately, what came rushing back was a meeting that I had at lunchtime with the principal and that teacher. And I remember it so vividly. I was sitting in the desk. All my friends were at lunchtime or at recess. I was sitting in the desk. She was sitting on the desk, and he was standing over by her shoulder. It's so wild how, like, years it was disappeared in my mind. And then as he said this and validated it, which is huge, validated it that this was a real occurrence, it came gushing back. And I remember her specifically saying, "Michael, you are in enough trouble and you don't want another phone call home." Side note, of course, I was a troublemaker. I did go to Catholic school, so I get a pass.
You're right.
Uh, uh,
Yeah.
so she said, "You get in enough trouble and you don't want another phone call home. We're going to make believe this didn't happen and we're not going to call your parents about it.
That's
And you're going to
awful.
go back to class as if it never happened." And I went, "Okay, like I don't want another phone call home. I don't want to get in trouble."
Yeah.
And so it disappeared. And then
Mhm.
this kid, this guy, validated that it actually happened. And there were other moments like that in my life, and I'm sure some of your listeners can attest to this, where something happened to us that was traumatic. An adult, a trusted person said to us, "Hey, that didn't happen," or "You're overblowing it." Now we might call it gaslighting.
Yeah.
You're overblowing it. And so because you're the kid who's labeled the troublemaker, because you
Mhm.
don't want to get in any more trouble or whatever, you act as if it never happened.
Mhm.
But then this comes back in life where if we don't acknowledge it and we don't solve for it, like what you said, the healing process, if we don't heal for it, it comes back in other self-destructive ways, which is what
Mhm.
I ended up doing, being very self-destructive in my drinking. I thankfully didn't get to the bottom, and I was able to. I'm sober today out of choice,
Mhm.
and I didn't have to go anywhere. I'm appreciative of that, but and also understand where you came from.
Mhm.
But I was very self-destructive in that, self-destructive in my relationships, and self-destructive at work, and I didn't understand why. And so when we go back, and as an example, which is that trauma there, and I go back to some of those traumas of the abuse, and there were some sexual things that happened that that happened in my youth that were not normal,
Mhm.
and then you start understanding, oh, that's why I have problems in relationships. Oh, that's why when I drink I do these different things. Oh, that's why when I'm doing really well at work I decide to self-sabotage and
Mhm.
completely get myself fired, right? You go from rep of the year, rep of the month to fired. How does that happen? This is self-destructive behavior that comes from past traumas that you
Yeah.
haven't solved for, that you haven't validated, acknowledged, and then healed through process. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit of mine to some extent.
No, yeah. I have wished so many times that I could show somebody like my PTSD. You know what I mean? Like, because you can't see it on you, and especially like you're growing up, you're dealing with trauma, you don't know how to handle it. You've been told by an adult this didn't happen. You're cranking over it so many. Well, anyways, I would have
Yeah.
been, and it's yeah,
It's
that's
almost like
not
you start striving for that chaotic thought process, and that's
Right.
why.
Like if I'm gonna be bad, then I'm gonna be the best at bad.
right,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right, yeah. And if you're gonna label me that, watch.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, so in terms of the healing for that, for you, and this is what's interesting too. When we know, like with military, we know there's PTSD. I know that there aren't a lot of resources, but there are some, right? And
Mhm.
with alcoholism, there's AA. But then when you think about like what I'm talking about, where do you go? Right? Oh, I
Right.
just found out that my sixth grade teacher did slam my head or did abuse me in that way, and there was other things too. What do I turn to, right? Like, is it a
Right.
psychologist? Is it where do I go? What are the resources, and how do I want to deal with this, right? Because it's also very uncomfortable, and it's,
Mhm.
who do I want to talk with about this? And so it's a challenge. But what I will say for your listeners in this moment is, what I'll say to all of you listening right now is, the first thing is, um, just recognizing that it happened, right? So we go back to when I was talking about just accepting yourself for who you are,
Mhm.
and hey, I got this far, right? I got this far
Mhm.
with this trauma, and it happened, and now we got to meet it head on. Now we got to
Yeah.
meet it head on. So maybe it is speaking with a therapist in some way. For me, I did see therapy. I did talk a little bit with therapy, but the thing that happened for me was more of the personal development space.
Mhm.
Going through courses like Tony Robbins courses and hiring my coach. And coaching isn't therapy. That's not what it is. Coaching is being able to go from where you are today and be able to level up on a different in the way that you want to do it. So it's acknowledging the things that you are experiencing, recognizing them, and if you need therapy for them, obviously seeking that therapy. And if you're actually able to self-heal, if you're able to heal it and be able to move past it, then, that works for you, which is what worked for me, where I was able to, I did a little bit of therapy, but it wasn't really my thing. Um, I was able to do the personal development on, okay, I no longer want to be self-destructive. So how do I get better? And
Right.
started doing that work of getting better, of improving, of self-development. And working with a coach and going through that with her and asking her some questions sometimes. Hey, how can I deal with this? And her reframing it for me into, well, how do you want to deal with it? And us
Yeah.
kind of working through that process.
That's
When did
awesome.
you learn to start doing the walks, though?
The walks?
Yeah, because this
Well,
is another common theme.
yeah.
We
Yes.
had a guest that called it tree baiting,
Yeah.
but I want to hear yours.
They
And
call it what?
Tree baiting,
Tree baiting.
bathing in the
Yeah.
trees,
Take a,
taking a tree bath. They're walking in the woods. And he wrote a book called Four Walks in Central Park. I haven't started reading it yet, but I just ordered it and got it in a couple days ago. Anyway, I want to hear your side of it. How
Of the
did you get to
walks?
the walks?
Well, I don't know if the walks are as well. I think that they are therapeutic. They weren't. I wasn't seeking therapy in the walks. What I look at as the walks are, rather than sitting on a Zoom and we're sitting and we're talking for an hour,
Yeah.
or sitting face to face, we have this beautiful world, and why don't we get out and enjoy it? And we
Yeah.
can, if we can solve it on a walk, a bike ride. I had another client, we did a 2-hour bike ride together, and we were going through some technical stuff in his business. We were going through processes and setting up processes for other team members, and we did it on a bike ride. It was incredible. um, so it's really, I think where the walks come in, Dennis, is that my goal is to work with people who want to improve their selves. When we say mind, body, and soul, I really mean that. Like, I don't say I want you to improve yourself and say, let's just focus on you as a leader. I want to work on improving yourself as everything. How can we get you healthier? How can we get you to feel good about yourself? How can we get out in nature and get in touch with it, and really be able to say, so if we're saying to our team, let's do this all hands or this team activity, this team building, and we're going to go for a hike together. Well, what about you, Mr. or Mrs. Leader? When did you go for a hike last? Like,
Right.
don't make that your first time going for the hike. Make it who you are. So that
Right.
when you say to your team, hey, let's go for a hike, you can speak to your authentic self and say, I went for a hike with my coach. It was freaking awesome. And all of
Yeah.
you need to experience this too. So I
Yeah.
think it has a lot to do with that. But I think with your question there on the therapy side, man, the stuff that comes out on a walk, it really, you know what, like when they say it hits different, it really does, because it just allows that natural space to happen in the conversation of asking a question, walking a few paces with no answer, an
Yeah.
answer coming, walking a few paces to kind of let that sit. So it really gives a natural cadence to the listening and talking.
Yeah, I found that just by moving, it actually makes me almost more articulate. I don't know what it is. Like you were saying, there's a huge difference between sitting across from someone and you're like, I need help. And they're like, when you're moving, you just continuously, it's like you're cranking, you're already doing something. This is what we're doing together. We're walking. And then a conversation seems to happen compared to like forcing it, and
Right.
making it happen. Because I've even like met with people and we've just gone for walks. We were supposed to talk about something, but we just walked. It just wasn't time to talk about it. I wasn't ready. I was overwhelmed. But getting out there and moving really did help me. Because there was a long period where I wouldn't even come out of my house. I just didn't want to run into somebody I knew. I was embarrassed about who I had become. All this kinds of stuff. And eventually, I found this guy who was trying to help people with PTSD, and he would go on walks with me. So that was like a big thing, going to a public park and just getting out there. And then eventually you prefer it because while you're moving, you're thinking, I don't know.
Well,
You're-
you're actually embodying the idea that we talk about all the time on here as well, is just changing your perspective, changing the variables. You're literally changing your perspective every step of the way on that walk.
Yeah.
that's true.
And while you're and while you're walking, and like what you just said too, in terms of like, say you set out for that walk to say, let's solve this problem, and you say to the other person, hey, let's work on this problem. Okay, awesome. Or you hire a coach and you want to work on this problem with them, and you start walking, and like you said, and you're like, you know what, let's just start walking, and 10 minutes in, nobody's spoken, and 20 minutes in, nobody's spoken. But what's happening is that you're working through it in your mind, and you're kind of solving your own problems, which, by the way, back to coaching, that's really what coaching is. Like, when I know when I'm going through something deep, when I'm going through something that's challenging or anxiety or stress producing, when I call or text my coach, I'll say, hey, and shout out to Merritt. I'll be like, Merritt, I need you to ask me 3 powerful questions. I don't need her advice. You don't need anybody's advice. What I
Right.
need, because we have the answers within us. That's what we do as coaches. We recognize that you have the answers. You know how to solve your problem. You just need the prompts. You need the questions to get you there. So I'll say, I need 3 powerful questions from you. And we'll get on a call and she'll ask them. And all she does is ask the question and hold space. So back to you in that walk, it's probably very similar in that maybe you made the statement and that other person just held space for you. They're just there walking the pace with you. You know they're there. You know the support is there. Like back to support with leaders is
Yeah.
that it's like open door and allow them to just sit on your couch without you going through the numbers. Just allow them to sit on the couch. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. It's just, you know, they're there. And if you need to speak, you will, but you're working through it. You're talking through it. You're figuring it out. You're solving the problem to where, like you said, at the end, maybe it was a handshake or a hug. You were like, oof, that felt good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really funny. How do we say it sometimes? It's the ministry of presence can do a lot, especially for someone who's going through it, because they don't even know where to start, talking about it, and they don't want to talk about it. They just want it to not be happening. So just to sit down with a person like that and just like you said, hold some space, be a listener, be there, even, yeah, that's amazing. And it's so funny how we all need that, but we pretend that we don't. Like we're encouraged to be like, I don't need your help. Get away from me. Like that sort.
Well, this is
And
something that we're taught. We're
is it?
taught that because think about it when a young child cries. What's the first thing? Oh, don't cry. Don't cry. How can I console you, right? Or someone passes. Oh, it's all going to be better. It's all going to be better. Don't worry. Don't worry. So that we think that we're consoling them. And what we're doing is we're telling them, don't feel bad. Don't have those feelings. So we're being
Right.
very black and white about feelings. Whereas it's really accepting those feelings. And you know that in AA, it's accepting that anger is an emotion. Sadness is an emotion. Just like joy and happiness are emotions. Joy and happiness are more fun. Unless you listen to alt rock, and that's also kind of fun to get down there, but that's a whole different podcast. But anger and sadness are emotions, controlled, right? Just like joy and happiness, uncontrolled joy and happiness are chaotic, right? We know that when we see somebody that's super joyful off the rate, we're like, oh my goodness, like you need to ease up, you need to calm down, right? And that's true. We do. They're maybe too loud, or they're gonna break things around them, and it's because they're just joyful, right? So we're talking about controlled emotions. So controlled joy, controlled sadness, and controlled anger are okay. And when we talk about holding space, it's seeing the crying kid and just going over and putting your arm around them. And like you said, just being there. All right. What are you crying about, buddy? Oh, yeah, that does stink. Validating those feelings. Hugging the person who someone just passed away and saying, man, there's no replacing them. I'm here for you. And that's it. Allowing them to cry, allowing them to be sad, allowing them to work through those emotions naturally. But to your point before, because so often we are the opposite, don't be angry, don't be sad, calm down, and all this other stuff, we then internalize all of that and are like, I'm not allowed to be this. And we're like freaking out, So that's what's happening.
That really just struck a chord with me, because I keep doing that to myself. Like I'll have a bad day, I'll get activated, and I will just be angry that it's happening and just be like, why can't I control this? I need to, you know what I mean? And it's all about just like pushing back on it. And then instead of, because you can't, what I usually transition to, and it's not a good thing, and I'm working on it, and it's gotten so much better over the 9 years that I've been working on it, is I would transition into anger. If I felt out of control in any situation, I would transfer into anger. And not only is that dangerous, but when you have PTSD, you like literally believe you're right at some times, and you're ready to die on a hill over something very small. But it's just, you've been pushed, it feels like, to the point where you can't even hold it back anymore. And then afterwards you're like, what happened to me? So you're doing a lot of this, And
Yeah, you're doing a
unfortunately,
lot of self judgment. You're judging yourself. You're being really critical of yourself. I mean, Dennis is your friend, right? You got to ask yourself, if Dennis was being as hard on me, what would I say to him? I'd say,
Right.
get off the
for,
phone with me, right?
yeah.
Yeah, we are our
So,
own worst enemies in that regard.
right. So the
A lot of
question
us.
to you then is, what would Dennis say to me in this moment? Because
Yeah.
we know he's a good friend, right?
Yeah.
So when you're angry, how would Dennis ask you, what are you angry about? Would he say, why are you angry? Or,
No,
go ahead,
he
Dennis, how would you ask him?
he did that to me one time. I was in New York. I was visiting I went with my wife because she's based out of New York, Manhattan. And I was very anxious about going to Times Square and, all the people moving and all that kind of stuff and a lot of people behind you. And I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. Um, and I kind of, it's funny when you think you got through something, there's still like the after effect. What I'm trying to say is like, so you go into the crowds, you're like, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Okay. There's only 15 minutes left. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And then you get home and you're like, I did it. But there's still a lot of like anxiety in there, and it just ended up like things started deteriorating, like flights got canceled on the way home and then pushed back, and all this stuff happening. And I'm kind of like starting to blow up. And I, it's just so funny how it can get out of control so fast. And you're like, what's happening? Just be normal, and
Well, did Dennis
it's,
call you? Did you speak to him?
well, I said, I was like texting him. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me. I was texting him and I was like, this blah, 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 blah. And the first thing he says is, I can't wait for you to tell me the silver lining you found in it.
That's
And
awesome.
I was like sitting there in the airport. I'm like,
Ah, that's it.
I'm
That's it.
like,
High five, Dennis.
I'm
That's
like,
right. How are you
I'm
going to
like,
spin this so we can talk about it and help people?
That's
I'm like,
right. That's right.
just
How do we help people with this? That's exactly right, man. It's beautiful. I love that. How do you find a silver lining in it? That's cool. That's great.
yeah.
Well, the silversmith story that we share a lot on here too is part of that. If you want to share it, you can. But anyway, it's just that God's a silversmith. Are you going to run with it, or am I running with it?
No, I'll do it. All right. So yeah, the story is basically, I guess in the Bible at some point, a Bible study was doing a Bible study and they look at it and it says, I think it's Jesus is a refiner of men, like a silversmith is to silver, or something to that effect. So the lady was like, I got to figure out what this means. So what I'm going to do is contact a silversmith and kind of watch his process. She goes, she watches, she doesn't tell him what she's like kind of researching, but he's explaining the steps. I'm going to take this piece of silver, I'm going to put it directly in the middle of the fire where it's hottest. She asks, well, couldn't you put it on the edge or close to it? He goes, no, it has to be in the hottest part of the fire because that's where all the impurities are going to get burned off. And she's like, oh, okay. Um, and then she noticed him staring directly at it the entire time. And she's like, couldn't you just set it down for like 5 minutes and then come back, like a timer? And he's like, no, not only uh, can I not walk away from it, but I can't take my eye off it because if I feed it past a certain point, it will be damaged beyond repair. And she goes, well, when do you know to pull it out? And he says, that's easy, when I see my image in it. So it's the idea that sometimes, Jesus or God will put us through situations not as a punishment, but as something that is going to refine us, something that's going to actually make us stronger, build us into something better and even more useful. And then when we stop going through the pain is when he finally sees his image of him in us. And we just thought that was kind of a cool way
Yeah,
to
That's
say
what
it.
you're looking for. The silver lining is referring to that.
that's right. Yeah, and I mean, one of the questions that my coach asked me early on, and I now ask myself all the time, and I guess I'm at another level now to where I don't have to ask myself this as much anymore, which I just realized in this moment here. So that's kind of like, yay,
There you
celebrate the
go.
wins, Michael. Um,
Yeah.
is how is this happening for you? Is anytime that we're going through something that's challenging, that's painful, how is this happening for you? And here's something that's cool. I go to the gym. I love working out. I love exercising. And I was just speaking with somebody about this recently. We were just talking about what we're talking about here, which is challenges and how hard they are and how they suck and how it sucks when something gets in my way and blah, blah, blah. And I was like,
Right.
we're at the gym right now, right? I'm like, we're at the gym. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, this is what's so cool about this conversation. And same here. I'm like, why are we here? And he's like, to lift weights. And I'm like, yeah, cool, right? So we lift weights, right? Do you just lift weights that are light and easy? No, that doesn't do much, right? He's like looking at me like, you're silly, dude. And I'm
Right.
like, yeah. So we don't, right? So let me stop playing silly here. We lift weights that are heavy and that are hard, right?
Yeah.
For every category, no matter if they're 15 pounds to 130 pounds, whatever you want to lift, right? The point is that we're coming to this place, we're paying to come to this place,
Yeah.
right? To walk in, put on our cool t-shirts and gear, and to lift things that are heavy. And we don't just lift things that are heavy, so those are our challenges. We don't just lift things that are heavy, but then we lift them till failure. We push until we can't push anymore and our faces turn red and we're out of breath and we're like, I need help. And someone spots you and you get through that one, you put it down. And then when you put it down, here's the big part. Challenges in life, which lead to failure, we sulk. Oh, this sucks. Oh my goodness, my life's over. This is awful. Challenges at the gym, 1, we signed up for it. 2, we're lifting heavy, we're pushing hard, all our might. Now we did it to failure, fail. We failed, our muscles have failed us. We put the weight down, we just had a spotter, right? And you guys know what comes next. We're like, yes, that was awesome. We're amped, we're like, this was awesome, what an incredible workout. And this happens, right? So awesome, right? This happens in weightlifting. This happens in sports. What are the best games that you watch on TV? I see you got lacrosse. What are the best games that we watch? The ones that we're like, I'll never forget that game are the ones where it's like a tie score. Someone takes the lead, a tie score. They're battling. People like someone's got a bloody nose. Like I remember Steve Nash gets sidelined by the Spurs and his nose is gushing blood. It's like, that's the game you remember.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, that is life.
Mm-hmm.
It's life. Our life is full of challenges that we are signing up for. And sometimes we don't recognize that we're signing up for, but when you take that job, when you get married, when you have the kids, when you sign up for volunteering, when you're doing you're signing up for this stuff, right? We're signing up for life. And when we're signing up for life, we're signing up for challenges. And if we're really stepping into who we are, then those challenges sometimes are going to get hard. And we stay in that hard. And sometimes because we've stretched ourselves past what we're capable of, past what we have any knowledge on, we fail.
Yeah.
And that is not just the silver lining comes later, but that's an indicator. That's an indicator that we stepped into something that we kind of knew how to do, but didn't really, and we failed at it. And what that indicator does is tells us we need help, right? So the spotter, we need help and or we need to learn more. And so the question is, right, go back to the bench press that I was using as the example. That was a bench press, by the way. I did chest today. When you go to failure and you high five your friend and everything, next week comes rolling around. Do you not do chest again because you failed last time?
Right.
No, you do it again, right?
Yeah.
Well, here's the same thing with the indicator in life is that the failure happened. You get the tools, you get the resources, and you go for it again. You go for it differently. You attack it differently. In the chest press, it might be the same because it's kind of like a rote exercise and maybe you put a little more weight on or a little less weight, whatever it is. But in the challenges of life, if you're learning anything from it, which is the silver lining, if you're learning anything from it, then how do you address it? How do you attack it again differently?
Yeah.
There are challenges in life like flights getting canceled that there's nothing to learn or resources or anything around it, right? But what there is in that moment is, how do I wait for the next plane? How do I use my time in this moment where I have to wait for the next plane? How am I treating the people around me? Am I being kind to the flight attendants who are standing behind the stand there who are stressed out as well? Am I being kind to my fellow passengers who are stressing out? Am I maybe meditating or reading a book or doing something for self-improvement? Or what
Yeah.
about family? You said maybe you were with your wife. Am I spending this time? Hey, when do we get an hour alone together without any interruptions? Am I
Yeah.
spending this time with them? There's the silver lining in those moments where we don't have control over them, because in those moments, you actually have control over so many variables of the flight attendant and affecting their day, and the passengers, and reconnecting with your spouse or loved ones. So there's so many different ways to look at this.
That's
Yeah.
controlling the controllables that we talk about too. I
Yeah.
love it. You get it, man. You
Yeah.
get it, brother. That
And I
was
love
exactly it.
and I love the weightlifting analogy, because you could also say that in those moments where we push to our maximum, those are the moments of the most growth. You walk away from the gym, you're going to be the sorest, your muscles going to get stronger, and actually when you walk in the gym the next time, you're going to be better at it.
That's right.
So I like that a lot. That makes a lot of sense to me, you know. And we only grow when we're put in situations. We had a guest recently who's actually in jail talking about it, and he was saying that comfort is a lot of times a trap, because he thought comfort for him was, trying to get the house, the car, having the drugs to make him feel a certain way to get comfortable. But then he found himself just cycling in that. And it didn't become comfort, it became a trap.
Right.
And he's like, how the hell do I get out of this trap? And, it took some time. He ended up in jail, and, he was able to sort it out from there. But it is funny. We're all going through it, and we're all running into stuff that's challenging us. And we're in this modern day of social media where we think that everybody else understands what we don't understand, or, is able to do what we can't do, or has what we don't have. And we just kind of stay in envy for a while, and it's really hard to operate your own life and push forward when you don't have the blinders on, when you're looking at everything else that's going on around you, and comparing and comparing. And I've been so guilty of it,
Yeah,
and,
we all are.
and I just really had to go tight with the blinders for a while. It's sobriety and figuring out a higher power. And then it
And
was like, okay, this worked. Maybe I can help somebody else with it. And then,
yeah.
that sort of thing.
And comfort is good. I mean, comfort is a necessity, right? We need to know that we have a home, and that we have transportation, being a car, and a
Yeah.
place to live, and safety. We need that comfort, and we need the growth. And you
Yeah.
don't get
Balance
growth.
is a big key word in life. You have to balance things out. You have
That's
to
it.
balance the good and the bad, the comfort, the challenges. You can't be over involved with your anger or your happiness. You have to control it. Control what you control, and keep some balance
Yep.
and perspective on everything that you go into.
And yeah, I always say, just
Yeah.
embrace the suck, right? Like, embrace it,
Yeah.
because you got to embrace the uncomfort. You got to embrace the suck. You got to recognize that if you're trying something new, if you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, which is exactly what we're talking about with that person, is that comfort is good because it's a necessity. It's what we need. We really, we actually, by the way, we can't strive for more if we don't have those necessities met, right?
Right.
So if we don't have the comfort of a safe home, of a safe environment, and you guys know this as police officers, because that's what you see in the cycle, is that they don't have a lot of their basic needs and necessities met. And so therefore they cannot grow. You need some of that. You need that safety. You need that comfort there that we're calling comfort, right? And then you need to also get uncomfortable. And you need to get uncomfortable in order to grow. So that's what we're talking about. But yes, there are people, and sadly, and those are the people that we try to help every single day. And I partner with organizations to do that. In fact, I'll be running about 5 or so miles tomorrow with a local organization called Family Services, who takes care. They're helping those people who don't have basic needs, Matt, abusive households and all the rest. And I'm running with them for a fundraiser. But what I'm getting at here is that what we have to recognize is that when people don't have their basic needs met, they cannot grow. They can't put themselves in those uncomfortable situations, because they are living in uncomfort. They already are there. It's kind of like when you were in the bottle. It's like you were in that uncomfortable. You're in the bottle. Somebody can't come and tell you like, oh, you need to learn this new thing. You can't learn anything new. Right. You're here.
Yeah.
So we have to recognize that too, that comfort is a very important part of growth, is that we have to have those necessities met. We have to have that comfort, and then we can embrace the suck. and then we can get uncomfortable because I can go to the gym, I can work out, but then I know I got the sauna, I got a hot shower, I'm going to come home, I'm going to have a nice meal, I'm going to be able to relax and jump on a cool podcast with you guys.
That's a really good
Awesome.
point. Like if you're living in survival mode, the the idea of bringing new challenges in is like a no-go. It's like no, no, no. But
I'm trying
I
to
get
live, I'm
that.
trying to survive.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
you work with that survival mentality, and sometimes you don't even realize you're doing it. You know, you just keep everything tight, you keep it small, and you're like, this is all I can handle. And yeah, but
And
eventually,
Dennis, you saw my shirt when I came on, Be the Good. And that's
Yeah.
that's kind of what I speak to here is like compassion. The three of us, where you guys all are in your lives and where I am now in my life, we have the ability, and you talked about resiliency. We've gone through things, we've gone through enough. We're in a place that's safe, that's comfort, right? So we
mhm,
have the ability to give compassion to those people who don't have it.
yeah,
The person that shot you, to go that deep, right? To be able to go and just forgive them, give them
yeah,
compassion, because obviously you had to do that to get to where you are, right? To be able to have that compassion, we have to be able to do that. That's what Be the Good means. It's like be the good is not just be the good for Michael and be the good for
hmm
my wife and kids. Be the
hmm
good means provide compassion for those who can't even see their way out of where they are. Hold that
hmm
space for them, recognize that they're kind of stuck. And until
yeah,
they can, like you said, nobody can get them out of where they are. They have to do it themselves. Until they can do it, just be compassionate, understanding of them, hold boundaries. Boundaries are very important. I speak a lot about that, is that boundaries are very important. You can't let people cross boundaries, but you can also say to someone, hey, I get it. You're in a tough spot. We're going to have to put cuffs on you, dude.
yeah,
but but
yeah.
I understand why you did it, and I get it, and I hope things work out for you, and I hope you can find a way to get better in your life. But boundaries, you got can't cross them.
Yeah.
That was Dennis's and I's MO, just being like, listen, dude,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
Let's just put the cuffs on. Let's get back. Let's sort it out, and then we'll move from there. Like, and then
Yeah.
eventually,
This
someone's
isn't the
like,
end of your story. This is just another semicolon, and it's a little speed bump. It's a hiccup. But you can get out of it. You can get through it.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
you just been an explanation point at the end of this whole thing with what you just said.
yeah.
And you even answered the question that Cam usually asks at the end. What would you say to somebody in the creek right now? You just that answer that you just gave was it. That's the explanation work, man. Thank you so much for being here.
yeah,
This
that was
is
Right?
awesome.
absolutely beautiful. And where can our listeners find you? Now, I am going to attach all your information to the podcast and all that good stuff, but I'm sure there's going to be people calling you saying, I need some coaching. Where could they reach you?
Awesome. Yeah. And I hope so. And you don't just have to call me for coaching. Just sometimes I'm just an ear for somebody, and I'm happy to do that too. And we could always talk about how we can work together. Also, if you have an organization and need somebody to come in and work with your team, or conferences, that's another place where I speak at. So if you want to find me, you can find me on the nature trail. I'm just kidding. But all of my social media handles are the same: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I'm getting on TikTok now. They're all the same. They're at Michael Esposito Inc. And that's it. My
Okay,
website is michaelespositoinc.com. So it's really, really simple. If you go to my website, michaelespositoinc.com, all of my social media handles are on there.
perfect. Perfect. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. I knew that you'd have gold nuggets. I knew it. And this is going to be great. And to anyone else out there listening, again, remember, just keep pushing, keep grinding, be resilient, keep coming back to hear more stories of resilience and tools for resilience. Thank you
Cool.
so much.
Cool, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Shit Creek Survivors. If this conversation with Michael gave you hope, insight, or tools that might apply to your life, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who could use it. Remember, growth happens when we embrace discomfort, lead authentically, and choose to live as ourselves everywhere we go. We're walking this journey with you. See you next time.